Hey guys, welcome everybody to Pizza Industry Convos, State of the Industry, and this is a part of the Pizza Club Network. We're super happy to be here today. I have Aaron Baumhackel here, and I'm Melissa Rickman, and we're ready to get started. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm excited about this. Excited about this new format that we're about to tackle, and it's really exciting to be able to add the video component to it. And yeah, I'm stoked to be here and get this going.
Yeah, for sure. I love I like being able to see your face. Kind of helps the flow of the conversation. But today our topic is really there's so many guys who are doing mobile operations right now that are looking to get into brick and mortar, and I think sometimes the reverse. But I'm really excited to bring on one of the guys I love most in this industry. He's a good friend of mine. He really needs no introduction, but I'll give one anyway. He's a three-time World Pizza Champion. He's one of the founding members of the World Pizza Champions team. He's the founder and owner of King of Fire Pizza and Perfecting Pizza, my friend Siler Chapman. Welcome, Siler.
Hey, how's everybody doing?
Good.
Well,
Welcome. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice meeting you guys. And Melissa, it's good to see you again. I feel like it
you
was just
too.
a weekend or two ago.
I think so. I think so.
Yeah, you
Uh,
had your big your big opening show there at the Northeast Pizza and Pasta, which was phenomenal. So good job
Thank you.
there.
I appreciate it. It was definitely different. It's a different experience than just giving a class. So I hope to do better next time. But got to start somewhere for sure.
No, it was phenomenal. Everybody loved it.
Well, thanks. I appreciate it. So you competed. I just wanted to touch on that real quick. You competed. You were in gluten free, yeah?
Yeah, I was in the gluten free, got second place in that. So I did our traditional honey pie. So I actually did a grandma style crust. And we did pepperoni, red pepper flakes, and then drizzled honey on after we cooked it. And it was amazing. So we did well.
Well, I got to judge that division, and I actually did get to taste your pie. And I didn't know it was your pie. Obviously, it was outstanding. And I kept saying to my fellow judges, if I hadn't known this was gluten free division, I wouldn't have known it was gluten free pizza. Like it's come
Yeah.
so far, right?
It's
Um,
amazing how, I mean, I was blown away with some of the pizzas that these guys were making and gluten free. It was literally amazing. And again, you're right. Nobody would, some of these pizzas, you would not know the difference for sure.
Absolutely not. No, for sure. It was and honestly we've all eaten a lot of pizza. Definitely there are some gluten-free pizzas including yours that I would take over a traditional pizza. So, kudos to
Oh,
you
well,
because it's
thank
not
you.
easy. Yeah, for sure.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, I kind of wanted to dig in, Aaron. We should probably dig into the
Yeah.
topic at hand, which is, gosh, especially on the Pizza Clubhouse, there's so many folks that are mobile, doing pop-ups, talking about going brick and mortar. But Siler, uh, you started in the opposite, right? You had brick and mortar stores. Would you just kind of walk us through real quick how you came to leave the brick and mortar life and go to mobile and what you're doing now?
Yeah, absolutely. So started at 18 years old, had my first pizzeria. It was right after 9/11 happened. And so, you don't know where the world's going. One, two, what a great time to open, a business in a general in a recession or downturn. And we all felt that throughout the whole country. But being young and naive, I think that helped me out a lot because I didn't know any better, right? So you just get in there and you work as hard as you can. I remember when it would snow in the Carolinas, it doesn't snow often, and when it does, everybody shuts down. Me and my mom would actually sleep at the restaurant just so that we'd be open for the next day in case we got stuck at home or something. We would, we'd be there. So learned a lot with that experience, and we grew that concept to three stores over a very short period. And then I was very blessed to be introduced to a guy that here in Charlotte that had a monster operation of chain restaurants, and we actually ended up. He bought my three out, and then we converted it to a franchise concept. Pretty much, a lot of people might know Donato's Pizza. We grew that to 25 stores in the Carolinas, and oh 08, this was during the time of 07, 08, 09, 2010. We lost 10 stores, just bad rents, bad leases. I mean, at the end of the day, it was nothing we could do about that. We just needed to cut the fat, right? And we got very back profitable, and we were like, okay, it's time to get out while we could, right? And be afloat. And that's what we did in 2012. I took a non-compete, and then I'm still a part. During this whole transition, I won in 2006, 7, and 8 in Italy with the acrobatics, and we did. We started the World Pizza Champions team. We brought the pizza games back to Vegas in 2005. So many things were happening, and I wanted to step away for a little bit just to kind of get rejuvenated a little bit. So during those 2 years, I went and did something else, tried something, and one day I called Michael Shepard and I said, "Dude, the pizza industry is missing something, and I don't know what it is." And that was the birth of perfectingpizza.com, where it's self-help. It's basically we literally toured for a year and a half, went to everybody's pizzerias and did documentaries, and really wanted to find out who's extra successful, what's making the one percenters be the one percenters in the pizza game, right? And so we documented it. We wrote a bunch of content and stuck it on a website, and I think it's like $25 a month. And during that time, I was out in California, and we were doing a story talking with Justin Wadstein. He just got a mobile unit from Ken Bryant, and Ken was always doing phenomenal with his trailer out in California. And then a good friend of ours, Carmine Testa, had this beautiful little brick oven on wheels. And I was like, dude, you're doing what with this thing? So we're going to come see you too. And then we heard Tony Ceramelli was doing the same thing in this with a Marforni trailer with the double axles, kind of like y'all's, Aaron, the outdoor ones that the Marforni does. And I was like, oh my gosh. And then they told me the profitability out of these things, and I was like, no way. I was like, no. So they showed me some numbers, and I said, sign me up. And that was the birth of King of Fire in 2018. And ever since I left the brick and mortar scene, I said, I'll never go back, right? I'm not going back. I don't want to be married to a landlord. And I love what Nick Bogaz is doing. They do some leases, but they also own some of the buildings. And we all know who makes money at the end of the day with pizzerias. It's the ones that own the buildings. Melissa, right? So Melissa if anybody's ever been or hasn't been to Melissa's place, you got to stop in. She has a beautiful, absolutely gorgeous restaurant that her and her husband have totally redone. So hats off, Melissa. Y'all are doing a phenomenal job out there for that. But I told myself I would not go back into brick and mortar unless I owned the building. I had to own the building, right? And so there's King of Fire took off. Unfortunately, we had COVID, right? And COVID was a thing for a lot of people. And I felt like the ones that did phenomenal were the ones that already had delivery. If you already had delivery in the pizza game, a lot of people did very well, and then a lot of people did really bad. And so with the mobile, it changed everything for us. It literally allowed neighborhoods to open up for us. And so that took off. I mean, we went from 2 trailers to 4 trailers overnight. And just to kind of ramp up real quick, when we did, we thought everybody kept saying, you're going to get 2 weeks off. You're going to get 2 weeks off. Cool. And I was like, well, Amber's my wife and business partner for King of Fire. And we were like, we just got to keep getting it while we can, because we don't really know. Is it going to really be 2 weeks? Is it going to be 4 weeks? We don't know, right? Nobody knew what was going to be the outcome of this. So we started booking, and she's like, what if we do like our when we first started, we would promote to our neighborhood through the Facebook page and say, "Hey, we're going to set up in our driveway, and we want y'all to come try some pizzas out." Right? Well, what if we go to neighborhoods and ask if we can post in their Facebook group and set up in the neighborhoods, right at the pool? It's contactless. Like everything was literally just order online and show up and get a pizza. Well, she did a post on Fort Mill Eats, Charlotte Eats, this Rock Hill Eats, and literally we were booked for 6 months. Every day of the week, she had a booking all the way to 6 months out. Like it was insane. In 30 days, it was just unbelievable. So now we're ramping up. Now we need people. Now we need more trailers. So I'm ordering trailers. And so, long story short, it was just amazing. So we ramped up that way. And what was cool, we trained our customers. If you didn't order online, you probably weren't going to be able to walk up and get a pizza because we would already be sold out. And so it was amazing. And with these trailers, you can only bring so much product, right? And then we started having to get creative. How do we get more product? Do we have runners bringing more? Because literally it was endless. And I loved it because you could go to a neighborhood and then within 2 hours, you did 200 pizzas like it was nothing. And so that's kind of how King of Fire came. Now we have 7 food trucks. And we found I always told Amber I would never go brick and mortar again, but the stars have lined up beautifully, and every star had to line up right on the money. So now we're talking about going into a brick and mortar with a cool concept. And everybody knows us as the wood fired pizza, but I don't think that's the answer to go into a brick and mortar. So for everybody out there listening, I think you've got to elevate. You can't just do wood fired and survive in a brick and mortar. Period. Dot dot. Only so many people understand that concept. If you want to feed the masses, you need to be able to change and almost do like what Tony Gimiani has done. Mike Bausch has done this. You got to do multiple styles, right? And Detroit is a very easy style to do, whether if you have a conveyor belt to a deck oven to pretty much any type of oven except for wood fired, you can do Detroit's in. How do you do a grandma or a Sicilian? So the pan pizza market is taking off like no other. And then you can
Like
still do a traditional New York style pizza. And then so I like the fact that, hey, why can't I have multiple ovens, right? Have a Pizza Master or a Marifone electric, or do a wood fired oven. So you can have multiple styles on your menu. That's what's going to separate people apart and survive in a brick and mortar for you to year over year to be able to get more customers and see that trend. So that's what we're going to build here in the Carolinas.
So what would you say your biggest challenge was when you moved from brick and mortar to your first trailer, your second trailer? Like what was the thing that just kind of snapped you in the head that was like, oh, I wasn't expecting this so
Here's
much
the
different?
beauty. Yeah, no, for sure. Brick and mortar is you're there all day. You're stuck behind the 4 walls, right? Mobile, you get to see something new every single day, right? I'm sitting in my truck. We just got done doing a wedding, so I'm sitting in the truck. And by the way, we have a flat tire. So at the end of the
Just
day, mobile creates something so different. There's always a new challenge. There's always something breaking going down the road. So the challenge is how do you get to a wedding or to a private event and don't break down, right? So we have now created where we always have a tire guy on standby. No matter what, if I call, I'll pay more. I need you to come fix us. Like we got to be somewhere, right? If we break down, and we need a tow truck, I got a tow truck guy on standby. One thing also with mobile is we need a backup of everything. Brick and mortar, if one system goes down, you got another computer over there that you can just go to and put the order in. Typically, right? Well, in mobile, you only have one POS on the truck. What's your backup plan? Are we going old school pen and pad, or how do you take credit cards? Well, luckily Square, you can take it on the phone, right? However, we do backup POSs on on the trucks. And excuse me, but we have an O ship box, right? What's an O ship box? A pizza cutter, a sauce ladle, a dough scraper. You know what I mean? How many times do you get on the truck and you forgot those things, right? So you got to have those ship box and have those things in there. And so that's the trick with mobile is how do you get efficient? One, you only got an oven that can hold 8 to 10 pizzas at a time. We don't do Neapolitan. We do more American wood fired. So we slow the oven down to about 650, do about a 3 minute cook. And so, how do you mass produce that? How do you do 100 pies an hour without having 6 people in the truck? We can do right at like 105 to 110 with the right crew with 3 people. We can knock that out in an hour. So, so learning that and being able to mass produce pizzas at a very rapid pace, how do you do it, right? Carmine taught me an old trick with the wood fired ovens. When your deck starts getting cold and your doughs aren't cooking at the bottom, how do you still pump them out? Well, you swap the fire. So you move the fire from the left to the right, you start cooking back on the left. Now, do the first two burn? Yes. So you don't go all the way to the left side of the dome yet to cook, right? So those are some of the things that we really faced is how do you get very efficient and how do you have a backup of every single thing. And yes, I have a spare tire over here today, but I also knew I need to be on here. So I'm going to spend the extra money, get my guy to get me on the road so I can hang out with you guys tonight. So you have a spare tire, you have a truck
We
spare
appreciate
tire.
you.
Yeah, so, and that's the
We
fun
feel
part, right?
special.
No. But, and then, so when we were in Atlantic City, we had, the bearings on one of the trailers just completely just disintegrated, right? So the guy's on the side of the road. Luckily, I called this guy. He had him up and running in 20 minutes. So, you got to have your team to be able to get you back on the road because now you're also like a miniature trucking company if you want to look at it like that, right? And here's the problem. You can't have just anybody run these, right? You got to now teach them how to drive a truck and a trailer. You got to teach them how to back up. So if you can overcome these obstacles being mobile, you can straight go into a brick and mortar and crush it, right? Now, what does a brick and mortar have that mobile doesn't? I don't have to advertise. We have 0% advertising. We don't do social media very well, and we're booked for the next 45 days. We are slammed. And why don't we do marketing? Why people are like, my ovens can't handle it. We can't handle any more volume when we go to these events. You just can't do it. So brick and mortar, you have to advertise. You have to be on the front side of everybody's mind and top of mind awareness. So you got to play the different cards. Mobile is totally different versus brick and mortar, in my opinion. So hope
So
that helps a lot.
what was your biggest? Yeah, it totally does. I think if you've only done one and not the other, those things don't really come to mind. Well, what would if you could speak to the people who are really strongly considering going brick and mortar from mobile or from pop up? What was your biggest piece of advice? Like top couple of things that you really think like, gosh, you really wouldn't be expecting this, and you really need to nail that down.
Yeah, 100%. And Aaron, I think you can agree with this. Mobile, there's no overhead, right? You have very, very low overhead. When you go in brick and mortar, what is your overhead? Well, you got power, you got electric, you got gas, you've got all the little things there, which could in certain towns doesn't add up to a lot. In some towns, it's outrageous, right? But my number one thing is your lease. Don't get married to the landlord, right? How do you do a great lease? And I think in today's time you can get into a good lease. But you cannot sign these crazy 11, $12,000 leases. Now, listen, West Coast, sorry, Aaron, y'all have to pay those high rents. You talk to a Tony and in some of the rents they pay, I'm like, oh my God, how do you do it? But they have the volume to back it up, right? And they also have the know how to do it. If you're coming straight, just don't know what you're doing, never had a brick and mortar, Niles Peacock told me this over at Northeast Pizza and Pasta, and I never looked at it like this. My percentage is always been 3 to 5% is what I want my rent to be. Okay.
Yeah.
A lot of people might be a little higher, but me, to be aggressive, I want to be 3 to 5%. Again, I'm trying to get to a profitability, and I'm working my numbers backwards. He said if you can't do your rent sales in one day, any day of the week for 30 days, you can't do it in one day, you don't need to sign that lease. And I'm like, wow, never looked at it like that, because there are so many. I mean, think the average pizza place does $468,000 a year. The average pizza profit is 6%. That's only 24 grand. Why do you want to get into being a brick and mortar, right? To make 24,000 bucks. So again, how, Michael, I was so blessed to have Michael Shepard as my partner. He taught me the 20% rule. Like, how do you get to 20% no matter what the dynamics are? How do you get to 20% profitability? And you got to work that number backwards, right? And that the big factor in that whole play can be your rent will make or break you every single time. And again, now back in 2019, the end of 19, the beginning of 20, nobody really knew what a pandemic was, right? So many people lost their restaurants during pandemics, or because of the pandemic. So many businesses. I mean, it's heartbreaking, right? So here's my point. Now what are you putting in your lease as a pandemic clause moving forward? If this ever happens again, you need to have a pandemic clause. There's some great attorneys out there. There's a lot of research telling you what to add in there. And if your landlord's not willing to put that in there, don't sign the lease. You're going to be married to the landlord, right? And I don't want to.
And yeah. I'd like to just interrupt real quick. We often don't want to spend the money up front on things that we perceive to be expensive, right? Like a good POS. Like, I don't have a lot of money. I won't spend the money there. Same thing with a broker. Like, invest in a good broker that can steer you in the right direction. There's a company here in Denver that does just that. Like, they only deal with restaurants and they only help broker restaurant leases, right? And they can tell you what, all the things that you don't know. Get an attorney, spend the money, because if you don't know it, you need somebody on your bench who does. I think that's really great advice, Siler. Like, so many restaurants, I think, continue to fail because they don't negotiate good leases for themselves. They don't know, what percentage of your, expenses or sales should be lease, right?
Right. And it's scary, and you don't know. And here's another one that a lot of people do that are messed up. They go in with a high expectation that they're going to come out of the gate doing Tony Gimiani numbers. Ain't going to happen. Sorry. I love you, but it ain't going to happen, right? And so when people come to me and say, well, I'm going to do $1 million this year in my pro forma, okay, we'll do the same numbers that you just did. And listen, take a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, go do your research and do a true P&L budget, okay, essentially, of a pro forma of what your expenses will be, what you think it'll come out to be. And then when you say you're doing $1 million, what is your true break even off all those numbers? What's your rent? What's your gas bill? How I don't know what my gas bill. Call up the local gas company and say, hey, what's a local restaurant does? What do they do? They don't have to tell you which one it is. Just help me do my budget, right? Well, you're going to spend $1,500 a month in gas. Cool. That's what I need to know. What's my power going to be on a restaurant like that? Call the power company. Find all these details out. It's so time consuming. Nobody wants to do it. Once you do it and it's done, now you have something to work off of, right? Well, when they come to me and say, hey, I want to do $1 million, cool. Can you do 500,000 and survive? And then they come back and say, no, I can't. Then you got to go back to the drawing board. Because again, the average pizza place does 468,000. What do you think is going to make you do $1 million over everybody else? I remember Tony for the very first time ever hitting $1 million a year at Paisanos. And it was the hardest thing anybody ever talked about. Like, he was like, dude, we can't believe we did it. And here's what we had to do to get it. And it's amazing to hear that story. And now he's hitting $1 million a month in one restaurant. So again, it doesn't happen overnight. Now, can you get the perfect location and just everything lined up? Absolutely. But don't,
Yeah.
it's
Don't bank on
top
it.
five. Yeah, do not bank on that, right? And so that's my big pet peeve is go do the numbers. If your number wants to be 20% on 500,000, I can make $100,000, but you got to structure every single dollar all the way from backwards on that 20%, and a lot of people don't even know how to do their own food cost. I've got people at my
Well, that's
commissary.
not a
I
lot.
help them all the time because they don't even know what a plate of food is costing them. And this
Um,
is the reality of it. Yes, sir.
I've got a question for you, and your enthusiasm, your passion really comes out. I mean, you've been doing it since you're 18, but when you talk about the mobile, you definitely pop, and you use the word when you talk about your brick and mortar, you use stuck. You use the word stuck. So people that are listening to this that are thinking of making the leaps, going from their pop-ups and trying to decide where they want to go. Do you think mobiles are for everybody? What's your thought? What are your thoughts there versus brick and mortar?
No, mobile's definitely 100% not for everybody. I think mobile burns people out faster than anything, right? I mean, the tugging, definitely if you have the open end trailers like you and I do, Aaron, on some of the units, you got to put up a tent every day. You got to lug tables around. You got to drag coolers up and down the road. There's a lot involved there, right? So again, that is not for everybody. Brick and mortar could be a lot easier on the body, essentially, than mobile. So I hope that helps a little bit.
Yeah,
But
it
I
definitely
think also,
resonates.
I also let's talk. My guys in Ohio, Pennsylvania, all my guys in Pennsylvania, they're dead December, January, February because of snow. They have nothing. They need a brick and mortar. So do they do a nice small slice shop that's their commissary and doing a brick and mortar pop up? Absolutely. Um, so again, mobile's not for everybody. No, 100%. I also think though mobile is a great tool to find your niche market. Meaning, if I'm on the west side of Charlotte and nobody really likes our style of food, but I go to the north side up by the lake and everybody loves it, and we're selling out every weekend, well, guess what? That tells you right there you need to find a brick and mortar around there, right? So you need to be able to use that as a tool to find out what are the hot spots for you. I know there's a town in Charlotte. We had a brick and mortar there. I swore I could put it on my kid's life that this place would hit a home run. And it was the worst store in the market for us. All the numbers, all the real estate, everything about it screamed perfect, perfect, perfect. We couldn't get that store to do any numbers, right? So again, it's shocking, right? But if I'd had a mobile unit, I could have gone in there and tested the market and see if that would have happened or not, right? And it would have never, we would have known right off the rip that this isn't the market for us. And so we needed to go 5 miles up the street, and that's the perfect market, So again, use for all the guys doing pop-ups and their smaller trailers right now, use that as your landmark of where are we best at right now and who loves us the most, and that's where we need to go for a brick and mortar for sure. And
Awesome. Well, Siler,
I don't want anybody to think that I'm anti brick and mortar. I love brick and mortars. However, you gotta be smart. You gotta be smart. Okay.
how to be smart. Siler, we thank you so much for taking time to talk to us today. You have a flat tire and you just got off of a wedding, and
Yay.
as always, your dedication to the industry is just amazing, and we love you. We appreciate you. Can you please tell people how they can get in touch with you if they'd like to with Perfecting
Yeah,
Pizza, or if
absolutely.
yeah.
You can reach out perfectingpizza.com or kingofirepizza.com. There's always a contact us button. My telephone number's out there, so feel free to reach out. Always out to help anybody. We had a group from Asheville come down today, see the commissary, and do a walkthrough there for mobile. So again, we're always out to help.
I
Super
checked out
cool.
your website today. It was awesome. I was wondering why didn't I see that 20 years ago? But now that
Thank you.
I'm still 20 years into my business, I'm still going to look at it because I'm sure there's lots to learn. Pleasure talking
Oh,
with you.
thank you. Thank you.
Always lots to learn. Hey guys, if you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe on YouTube, and share this with all your pizza pals. You can also subscribe to our podcast on all of the podcast platforms. Guys, it has been an absolute pleasure. I will see you guys. Will you both be at Pizza Expo?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. We'll see you
Working on
there.
it. Awesome.
Bye,
Thank you,
guys.
guys.